Hello and welcome to Easy Math channel. This week we'll focus on solving for slope of a line, and this is in continuation to the previous video where we discussed how to plot a given equation on a graph using function table. And this week we'll typically focus on solving for slope of a given line. And slope generally refers to the amount by which a line rises or falls. And we'll look into, when we go through certain examples, what does that mean. But slope is an important concept. Um, let's say, for example, in economics, where a price for a certain product changes, where a price for a product changes, like how does that affect the number of quantities you'll buy that product. So slope is a good example to understand that effect of change in one thing and the effect of that change on another thing. So but in general it's just for the sake of this video, we'll just refer to the slope as the amount by which a line rises or falls, and we'll look into it further. Now in this video we'll look at certain things. One, we'll look at how to solve for slope using a graph, an already given graph, and then we'll look at how to solve for slope using an equation. And then the last uh, part of the video is a bonus where we'll discuss 4 different type of slopes. Cool. So let's look into the first step, which is finding a slope using a given equation, using a graph. So in this equation, we have a graph and we have a line that passes through origin and different points. And you can see that we have certain triangles here. So I forgot to draw this line, but we have like different triangles here. And I just used certain points to draw this triangle. Typically, I used the coordinates which are whole numbers. So for example, this is 3 comma 4, this is 6 comma 8. So I just picked certain points which were just whole number to draw this triangle. So in this case, if we have to find out slope, um, all we have to do is slope is, as we said before, is rise over run. And in this case, rise is this direction, so we rise up and then we run on a flat surface this way, right? So if we look at this triangle, this first triangle, where we see the rise is from 0 to 4, so like here, the y, along the y, so the rise is 4, and the run, which is this way, is from 0 to 3, the x-axis, so this is x, this is y, is 3. So our slope for this line is 4 over 3. Again, you can look at another triangle and you would get the same result. So now this triangle rises from 4 up to 8. So it's 4. And then it runs from 3 up to 6. So that is, difference is 3. Again, the slope is 4 over 3. And you would get the same result if you pick this triangle again. So using this graph, the slope for this would be the rise along the y-axis and the run along the x-axis. So that is 4 over 3. Now let's look at another example, again using the graph. And we'll look at this triangle. Now, the rise in this case, if you see, we are going downward. So the rise is negative, right? So that is from 0 to -3, so which is -3. And then run is this much. So run is this here, this much. So which is 3. So it's 0 to 3 and then run is 3 to 0. So 3. So that is -1. So our slope in this case is -1. And if this is still like hard for you to understand, there is another way we can do. So this coordinate is 0 comma 0, and then this coordinate is 3 comma -3. So let's say this is x1, this is y1, and this is x2, and this is y2. So rise over run also has another concept, which is change in y divided by change in x. So change in y, by that I mean y1 minus y2, since we have like 2 points, and then x1 minus x2. So y1 is 0 and y2 is minus 3, so which is minus of minus 3, and then x1 is 0 and x2 is minus 3. So this would be 0 plus 3 is 3 and 0 minus 3 is 3, and we get the same slope, which is -1. So either you use this, which is rise over run, which again is the same thing, which is change in y over change in x. So just use the 2 points and say x1 y1 x2 y2, and then just subtract the y values and then divide that by the difference in x values, and that's the same result as you'll get from rise over run. Cool. And let's now look at the second way of finding the slope using an equation. So let's say this is our equation, which is y minus 3 equals half x. And if you want to plot it into a graph, this is the line for this equation. And if you want to figure out how to draw this, I would recommend you to like go back to my previous video, which was for a given equation, how do we plot a function table, and then using that function table, how do we draw a line into a graph. But let's say this is our equation, and this line represents that equation. So in order to solve the slope for a line using this equation, we have to bring this equation to this form, which is y equals mx plus b, where m is slope of the line and then b is the y-intercept. So y-intercept is the point where the line intersects y-axis. So using or looking at this equation, this graph and this line, this is the point where the line, intercepts or passes through y-axis. So this is y and this is x. So in this case, b is 3. So let's bring this equation into this form. So we know that we only have y on this side, but here we have y minus 3. So in order to just keep y on this side, we'll add 3 on both the sides. So we get y equals, so minus 3 plus 3 is 0. So y equals half x plus 3. Now this looks similar to our, let me write that again. So this looks similar to our equation yx equals mx plus b. And if you compare this to this, so if you compare this part, m is half, and if you compare this part, b is 3. So remember we just said here b is 3. So you can also see from this graph that the line passes through the point 3 on the y-axis. So that means our b is 3 and m is half. So m is the slope. So slope of this line is half, and this line equation is y minus 3 equals half x, or y equals half x plus 3. Means the same. So this is how you calculate or you find out the slope of the line given an equation. So just bring it to this form, and then m will be our slope. Cool. So that brings us to the last section, which is the bonus section. And in this case, we will look at the type of slopes. So first is the positive slope. So when you look at the slope, it's always advisable to kind of read the slope from left to right. So from left to right. So in this case, this line rises. So this line rises on as we go across the coordinate grid from like left to right, or just in plain term, this slope is increasing. That's why it's a positive slope. So when you solve for slope for this line, you would get a positive number. And this slope is declining or decreasing. So when you calculate slope for this line, it would be a negative number. So again, you can use this knowledge when you find a slope for a given line. You can use this knowledge and see if you get a correct number. A correct number. So ideally, if your line is this form, so like in an increasing form, you should ideally get a positive slope. So if you're getting a negative slope, that means something is wrong. And similarly for this, it's a negative slope. The other two kind of slope is called zero slope, where we have a line, a flat line, which is parallel to x-axis. So this is x and this is y. So which is parallel to x-axis. Sorry. And you can see that for this line, which is flat and which is parallel to x-axis, has a zero slope. Why? Because this line neither rises or falls. It's just a flat line, and therefore it has a zero slope. And this line, which is again flat but parallel to y-axis, we cannot define a slope because it just rises infinitely. So if you look at the formula, which is rise over run, now since there is no end to this, the rise here, we don't know what the number for the rise is, so it's just undefined. So cool. So these are the four type of slope that you would generally find, which is positive slope, negative slope, zero slope, and then undefined slope. Cool. I hope this video was useful, and I hope you learned from this video how to solve a given slope for a line, or a slope for a given line using two ways, which is one is graph and one is equation. And I hope this video was useful for you to understand the concept. And if you do like this video, please subscribe to my channel Easy Math, and please leave your comments below. Thank you.